Hey buddy, it's Peter, and this one's gonna be a good one. We've got two 2024 Kawasaki side-by-sides, and what I'm gonna do is compare them side by side. There's also, hey, side by side. There's also a few accessories on each of these, and those may be things that you're interested in, and you can talk about those as well. But really what we're gonna do is a comparison between the Kawasaki Teryx4 SE and the Mule Pro-FXT 1000. These are both 2024 models, and you can do a spec sheet comparison on the Kawasaki website. You can go open two browser pages and go side by side and look at spec sheets. We will be talking about specs in these, but really what I'm gonna dig into is the types of things you don't really see on the spec sheet to help you decide which one might be best for you. So hopefully you're willing to grab a snack, grab a beverage, and stay with me because different parts of this video might be relevant to different people, and I'm gonna try to show you the things that, like I said, they don't show up on the website, they're maybe not showing up in other videos and other reviews, and if I miss something or you have questions, make sure you subscribe and let me know in the comments below because I can come back to these vehicles again and again, and the reason I can do that is because I'm filming outside at Kawasaki Way. Kawasaki Way is part of Jim Gilbert's Power Sports. Jim Gilbert's Power Sports is the #1 Kawasaki dealer in the country. Kawasaki Way is their custom test track where you can take these out and test them out for yourself, but Jim Gilbert's Power Sports gives me complete access to their entire product line. So if you have a question, I will come back to these with your comments, with your questions in videos. I'll also try to answer them in the comments as well. And we'll make the more information that you need and make sure we create a video database of information about both of these vehicles. Now, the reason I want to do this comparison is because this Pro-FXT with the new 1000cc engine, a little bit of suspension tweaks, has gone a little sportier than it has in the past. The Mule is always the sporty version, the Mule was always the work version and the Teryx was always kind of the sporty version, but there are some interesting sort of crossovers now where you may want to consider one over the other, and that's what we're going to try to cover in this video. So let's get going with this review. All right, so let's just cover off a few basics first of all. This is a 4-passenger side-by-side. This one is a 6-passenger. This one's geared more towards work, but like I said, it's gone a little bit sportier. This one's geared a little bit more towards sport. This one's an 800cc V-twin. This one's a 1000cc V-twin. They both have some bed capacity. They both have some towing capacity. They're both capable of doing some work, and they're both capable of going down the trails. Now, this one is a little narrower, being that 4-passenger model, so you can probably go down a few more trails in this one, but this one's not a whole lot wider, and you can decide which trails you can go down and if that works right for you. Again, actual width and specs, just check out the Kawasaki website. What I'm going to do now is start taking a look at some of the suspension components, start looking at it piece by piece, moving our way through the unit back to the dash, and talk about some of the key differences and how they'll affect you in your user experience. So when we talk about suspension, we're not just going to talk about travel, we're going to talk about the types of suspension, the adjustability, those kinds of things, and why one may be better for you than the other. So let's start out front here. First of all, you've got 10.7 inches of travel here, 10 inches in the back. That's a hair less than the Mule. You also have around 11.2 to 12.2 inches of ground clearance, which again, a hair less than the new Mule, which has been raised up for 2024. So you've got, in theory, a little bit less travel and just a smidgen less ground clearance. For the most part, I don't know that you're going to be able to go somewhere in one that you can't go in the other. We're talking like, fractions of an inch here, but there is that difference. So the difference isn't so much in where you can get to with the suspension travel or with the ground clearance. The difference is how the suspension works. So we're going to take an up close look right over here first and talk about that. While we're here, let's just talk about a few little differences up here. The winch is down lower on here. It's up higher on the Mule. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You still have a good skid plate in here. This one has the accessory brush bar mounted to the factory brush bar that's going to protect your headlights. We're going to talk headlights as well in a second up here. And overall, you've got kind of a sporty appearance here, more of a working experience on the Mule. So let's start by looking at the suspension, then we'll move over to the Mule, compare it, and again, take a look at that front end and go through those differences and talk about why they make a difference to you. So taking a look at the front shocks of this Teryx4 or SE model here, you have piggyback Fox shocks. So think about this in the terms of the Ford F-150 lineup. Every Ford F-150 has traditional shocks, which we'll show you on the Mule, but the F-150 Raptor, which is an off-road beast, has the piggyback shock. So what is that? Well, one, for some people, it's just style. It looks kind of cool, but it does have practical benefits. So first of all, the idea is here that as the suspension compresses and opens up and closes kind of thing, it's creating some heat. Now that hot oil can go over here, and that gives you consistent suspension performance. Now it depends on the kind of rider you are on if you're gonna have a noticeable difference. In theory, it's better, but it's kind of like having a 700 horsepower Ferrari. If you're only gonna drive around town, 700 horsepower doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Same thing with this. If you want to get a little bit more aggressive, you have some capabilities to make sure that your suspension performance stays consistent over a lot of movement. And that's sort of one real benefit here. You do have compression adjustment right up here, preload adjustment down there, so kind of cool. All four corners have this compression adjustment, so we won't show you all four corners of the vehicle, but that is a difference here. So let's take a direct comparison on the same shot on the Mule. We'll do that right now. So over on the Mule, I backed out the shot a little bit just so you can see that it is a traditional shock here and nothing else around. So you still have your preload adjustment down the bottom. It's a little bit more of a rudimentary preload adjustment, and there's not a compression adjustment right there. If you're not someone that's gonna play with your suspension, then this is probably the setup for you. Again, it works very well. The other one allows you a lot more customizability, or that kind of thing. So you can really kind of adjust it on the fly, even on the trail, depending on the trails you're on. You can go around and adjust that compression as you're riding, whereas this one, it is what it is. Now I will say this does give a very nice sort of luxurious ride. So let's talk about ride quality, because that's one of the key differences between these two. So this is my personal opinion, but I think you'll find it backed up by a lot of people. The general ride quality of this, both in the engine and suspension, this feels like a luxury vehicle, a luxury truck. It's still a working vehicle, but it has that nice kind of luxury type feel. The engine is quieter on this one than on that one, and that kind of makes some sense. This is a sporty, a little bit more rambunctious, a little bit more, fun-spirited type vehicle, sort of from the factory. So this one has a little bit more of that noise to it, a little more experience of that. I don't know that one's better than the other, but there is a noticeable difference in this one makes a little bit more noise to it. Now the ride quality, when I say this one rides in a more luxurious fashion, keep in mind you can adjust that suspension on all four corners by the turn of a knob. So that compression adjustment is right there for you at any time. You can soften this up and make it a nice luxurious ride, but you can firm it up and really have it perform well at a little bit higher speed over different types of things. If you want to play with that, you can sort of customize this ride. This one is more what it is, and I think a lot of people don't take advantage of that on here. If you're never going to take advantage of that on here, this one is probably going to be just as good as that. Again, you don't have to take advantage of this. You can just set it and forget it, but you have the option to do it. And that's one real key benefit that I think people overlook when they're looking at these two units. Now let's take a look at the back, and we'll talk about these as work vehicles. So as a work vehicle, the Mule really shines, and it has a couple hidden features that you don't always see on the website, or maybe you don't notice right away. And we showed it to you in our last video that I did earlier this week on this Mule. This bed is expandable into here. So you can fold down the rear seat, you can extend out the bed, and on this 6-passenger model, it is still a dump bed. You can tilt it and dump it and work like that. It also has a traditional tailgate, and it has a pretty good amount of space back here. And when you load it up completely with the bed folded down, where some of your weight will go in front of the axle, you can put up to 1,000 pounds in back here. So this one's going to have the advantage there with the fold down tailgate, extra capacity, ability to expand the bed out. This one's going to be the working champ. Now this one here does have a small bed. You can put this, again, this has an accessory box inside, and really for the purpose, that box makes sense, but you can use this for work. It does not have a tailgate, and on the 4-door, it is not a dump bed. So keep in mind, if you get the 2-door, you do have a dump bed, and it's actually cantilevered quite easily, so you can lift it manually even when it's loaded, whereas this one, once it gets really loaded, you're probably gonna wanna get that, or the power accessory. You can do it manually if you're super strong, but it depends on what you have in the back. You're not gonna lift 1,000 pounds of bed weight on this one if you load it right up, so you can get that power accessory. So again, you've got the ability, when you spend the kind of money that you're spending on these things, you probably want it to be both fun and work capable, and then you just have to decide what kind of work you want to do. This one has a towing capacity about 1,300 pounds. This one has a towing capacity about 2,000 pounds. So if you want to tow things around, for the most part, you're going to be able to tow whatever you want, but if you really want to tow something heavy, you're going to go with the Mule. Both of these are capable on the trail. Both of these are capable of working. You just have to decide what kind of working you want to do. So before we jump inside these vehicles and talk about the seating comfort, the dash layout, and those kinds of things, I want to talk about headlights. We're going to show you the switches later, but let's first talk about them. Now I'm filming, the sun is facing directly into me. It's a super hot sunny day. It's not the best way to film headlights, but I want to point out on this model here, lower trim levels, this one's blank. You have no headlight. Higher trim levels, you have like this one. LED headlights here, LED headlights there. They each have a high and low beam, so high and low beam in there. They are both white LED. Now you can't really see it on the video, but this one here is a halogen light, this one here is an LED light. So here's one reason I like the idea of still keeping a halogen light. If you are using these for work, and let's say you're using them for snow plowing in the winter, the days are shorter, you're gonna need your headlights on, and when you're snow plowing, the halogen light that comes on the Mule is a light that creates enough heat to melt the snow. So if you're snow plowing and you don't have a ton of accessory lights on, the halogen light still gives you the ability to have that headlight shining out in front of you, where the LED light won't melt the snow as quickly. This one, again, LED lights there and there, so you have to keep in mind that in the right kind of sticky snow, other kind of snow, it may not melt away from your headlights. It's just something to keep in mind. It's not something that makes a huge difference. I actually prefer LED headlights. The white light of each of those is closer to daylight in color, which means your brain can identify things very quickly because it looks familiar to your brain. So I always say you can tell the difference between a rock and a rabbit or a rock and a raccoon kind of thing when you're out on the trail or when you're out somewhere with an LED light. That's very, close to daylight. Halogen lights, as we all know, they're moving away from them in cars, but I think there's a reason to maybe keep them on a working unit. It depends on what you want to do. Of course, both these can be accessorized up with all kinds of lights. Let's talk about accessories in a few minutes, but first we'll go through the seating positions of each of these and talk about room, space, that kind of thing, and then the dash layout, and then we'll show you some of the accessories on these. So the first thing we're going to check out here is the rear seat of both. I'm just going to show you the accessories or the accommodations, I guess, first, and then I'll show you myself sitting in there. But both of these have what they call theater seating. So I don't know if you can see it here, but it's considerably taller in the rear than in the front. That allows you to see over the driver in front of you. Now this one is a bench seat and it is wide. So if we go full wide angle here for a second here, you can see a three people across the back here, three people across the front. You do have the ability to take two more people in this unit than you do in the other unit over there. You also have a little bit of a cell phone holder over there, a couple cup holders down there, and a relatively flat floor. So you can see there's a little bit of a bump there for the middle seat, but you do have a passenger who has to put their legs down there, so you need that flatter floor. We'll sit in them a little bit later. Actually, you know what? I may not sit in them because we've done it in other videos and it's just harder to show on video, but I can tell you have headroom and everything that you need. So here you have a much more separated area there with the rear seat. Similar flooring type idea, but you have that large center console there, and therefore your cup holder and storage spot are right there. There's no need to sit someone in the middle, so you're a little bit more connected or a little bit more in your own kind of pod here. And you can see I do have these sort of netted sort of sides on here to help hold things in back here. I've opened it up on this driver's side right here. That's an accessory. One thing I want to point out here, let's just go wide angle for a second here, is you can see this large handle right here. So that is really good to hold on as you're driving through more aggressive trails. And again, the seat backs and even the seat bottoms, they have a nice contour in here, and the seat backs as well have that sort of bolstering type thing, which allows you to really stay put just through the seats. Now over here, if you're going on a really aggressive trail, you do still have a rail here. It's right out there. So you have the same ability, but you don't have those same contoured seats to hold everybody in place. You do have 3-point seat belts in every seating position, so you have that, but it's just something to keep in mind. Let's move over to the front seat. We'll start here in the Teryx, and we'll just go through the same kind of idea. Bottom of the seat contoured, back of the seat contoured. I've got the seatbelt done up because this does sort of restrict you in speed if you don't have that seatbelt up. So we've just got it plugged in right now. Now we talked about the headlights earlier. Let's go a little closer in here. So the outer and inner headlights on this one can be controlled individually. So you can go low beam, high beam, low beam, high beam, and that can give you the type of light that you need. So you have a little bit more flexibility in that. Let's come over to here. You've got your ignition, you've got your two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive lock. You've got basically the same dash in both, so we'll just turn it on. You can sort of see it come to life. Again, the glare is hard to see on the camera. I don't have that kind of glare in person. The one eye of the camera versus your two eyes really diffuses that glare. So same type of thing down here, just an hour meter, trip A, trip B. down here. So there's your hour meter, trip A, trip B, and odometer at the bottom there. And again, much clearer in person there, just hard to film. Got a 12-volt port, and you do have the option of having a stereo in this. This is a standard equipment stereo here on this top line trim. There's your winch button right there. So you have a lot of nice features in here. Come back, you can see cup holders, a little holder there as well. There's no dash holding areas right in this one. There is the glove box. And when I say dash holding areas, you'll see what I mean. Just one second, dash storage. Low, high, neutral, reverse. Parking brake is up here like a car. This is a handle for your guests. So take a look at that. The windshield is optional. We'll talk about the features, the options in a second. Let's keep that in mind as we come across here to the Mule, and you can see some differences. So first of all, the parking brake can't be beside you because you have a passenger there, or you can have a passenger there. Parking brake's up here. Here's where I say the dash holding type areas. There are some storage areas here. Now again, you can't keep things here on a super aggressive ride, but you do have the ability to put things in there, accessories or other kinds of things. So you have that ability there as well. Both the vehicles, I should keep this on wide angle here, both the vehicles do have a tilt steering wheel here, so that's easy. Low, high, neutral, reverse right there. This one here has a single headlight switch. So remember, it's got the LED inner and outer lights, but it is a single headlight switch for straight headlights and then high beams right there. And then you have two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive button instead of a dial. And then you have the lock and unlock of the differential right there. So again, there are some differences there, right? You can see that. And then you've got the button over there for the winch, but you also have the remote connection for the winch right here on the dash. So just a couple little differences there. Two 12-volt ports here, another storage area down there, glove box, cup holders, that kind of thing. And again, everything's in front of you because there's just a seat beside you. So we'll talk about accessories here in a second. Oh, excuse me, I missed the cup holders down there. I should point that out as well. And you have a little bit of a wall here for your passenger to not slip their feet. Sometimes when you're going down a rough trail, the passenger's foot can slide over off of here. You don't want them in your way. So if they're anywhere near the gas pedal, they're not going to slide over onto your gas pedal because you've got that wall there. So it's just a little feature that people don't point out, but I think it makes some sense. I'll give you a view of myself here. I don't normally do this in a side-by-side, but I usually do it in a vehicle just to give you a sense of headroom and everything else. Of course, you've got tons of room for a helmet and that kind of thing. The seat back comes around, oh, it's hard to see there, right? About mid-back there on this one. It is quite comfortable, but it's a bench seat, so it's only going to go so far. The outside compartments or outside seating positions in the front do have the contoured area for your rear end, just like the Teryx does, but again, bench seat in the back. So let's just keep the same shot here. We'll wander across to the Teryx and you can see sort of the difference in the seat there as we come over to here. So jumping in the driver's seat here, same thing, we're gonna jump in. Seat height might be a little taller than this, hard to say for sure. Turn this one off here. All right, headroom, again, immense. I don't think it's gonna make any difference. And the nice thing about these headrests is they're not really headrests. You can see they're a long ways back, and that's designed for having room for the helmet. So if you have a helmet, you're not gonna put your head quite back like that. But if you do bang into things and do that kind of thing with a helmet, you have a little bit of neck protection there. And there's definitely a sense of being hugged in these seats that you don't get in the 6-passenger bench seat of the Mule. So seating position, what you see makes sense. You do have that different seating position. However, there are bench seats that are bad. The Mule are not bad at all. You could sit there all day. So now let's talk about a few of the accessories that are on these units today. And you can certainly check the accessories catalog to see what works for you. But again, there's always options to accessorize these up. So let's just take a look. So checking out accessories, let's just check out the very front end of the Teryx here. You've got a pretty cool spot. You have this area here, which again, if you're going through trails, just gives you a little extra protection for your lighting, right like that. You've also got the windshield. Now there's various ways to get vented windshields up here. This one has a little slider that gives you some venting right there. But again, it is a plastic windshield there. The Mule has a little different style. It's also got the accessory windshield. You can flip up some venting in here, but you can also flip up some venting up top and of course close those down. You can also get full fabric enclosures. We have actually a couple of these, the previous model year still in stock as demo units, and they have the full fabric enclosures. You can get hard doors, you can do all kinds of things. There's also mirror options. So on this little bit wider unit, you've got the mirror options mounted to the outside here on both left and right side on the Mule. Now I think that makes sense for a little bit wider unit, but out on the trail, a little bit less width sticking out. I love this wide angle central mirror that both lets you see your passengers behind you as well as what's going on behind you. Interesting, when we talk about being behind you, you can see here, it's hard to see on camera, but there's a plexiglass accessory out here behind the You can sort of see the reflection there. There we go, we kind of got it in there. But behind the rear seats there. So that is kind of a nice accessory because as you're out on the trail, you can see if you've ever driven a SUV with the square back, as the wind comes up, it kind of curls around and it can stick that dirt to the rear window. Well, here, that dirt, if you don't have this in, can come into the rear area. So having this hard plastic on the back, that sort of that curved area, gives you a nice area to make sure that dust doesn't just go right into your passengers. This one does have that sort of netting type screen just to help hold a little extra in there as well. And of course the Teryx has the box over here, which is not standard. You can mount that in, it's got little cup holders on top, but it gives you an ability to kind of throw things in there in a more secured area here. I feel like that bumper is an accessory as well, but I honestly don't remember. You guys will have to tell me on the comments. Over here, nothing that I see out on the back. Again, hitches are standard on both of these. You got a little square hitch there, so you've got the ability to tow on either of these. Also dual lights. Sometimes they only have single lights. You got dual lights right there, different style. One's below the box, one's in the box. And what else have we got for accessories in here? I don't think we have, oh yeah, we have a gun holder right here. So you have the option of little things like that. Simple as buckling it in there for a gun holder. So lots of things you can do with these. These are just a couple examples, but I just want to make sure that I clarify what is not stock on these units. So now let's talk about who is right for each of these units and maybe which one might be best for you. So this is a really interesting question. Which one is right for you? Up until 2023, it was pretty clear this is the fun one, this is the working one, and a lazy salesperson will probably still tell you that. But this one with the new 1000cc engine is from the KRX 1000. Now we thought it was going to be loud and we thought you would lose that sort of quiet engine that you had in this one and it kind of have this sort of louder experience, which is fine for a sporty unit. But what's cool is that KRX 1000 engine in this is actually a little bit quieter. So one thing to keep in mind is that 1000cc engine was brought in here and advertised as a working unit with towing capacity, that kind of thing. What you actually get in this is a little bit more of a fun experience as well, which kind of closes the gap down a little bit from, do you want something that is just for work and just for sport? This one now has a little bit more sporty character. It's got the jump off the line, and every time someone drives this, they're now saying, hey, I really like the way that one drives, where in the past, it was kind of mid-pack. It didn't really stand out. It drove nicely, it worked for people, it was a very practical choice. And that's one thing I like about this, is they brought some of that passion into this. So now, if this one's more passionate, why go for this one? Well, this one is still the sportier of the two units. If you're someone who wants to tailor that ride, who wants to make it a whole lot of fun, you've got that adjustable suspension, you've got the stereo in here, this one screams fun through and through, and for a 4-passenger unit, it's very compact and tight on the trails. Good turning circle, which means you just have a little bit more ability to go through a few more trails with something like this. The choice is really yours. If you don't need to do the work, this one might be the better one, but if you want a little bit quieter, more luxurious, calmer ride, this one might be the better one. If you have to take 6 passengers and you have to have a long bed, this is your only option. If you don't need the long bed, you can put a box in there, secure it up, and kind of customize these up to do what you want to do. Both of these are capable of doing light work. This one's capable of doing heavy work. Both of these are capable of doing light trails. This one's probably a little bit more trail capable than that one. It's an interesting choice, and when you come to your Kawasaki dealer, I think you'll find that when you jump in one and take it around something like Kawasaki Way, the test track, and then take this one around, I think you'll find you'll know exactly which one's right for you. So that's my quick overview of these. Again, there are things I can show you. I haven't shown you the storage capacity underneath the front seat here. Those are things we can show you in the future as well. There's lots of other features to still show you, but let me know what you want to know about each of these units, and we'll continue to make more videos for you. Thanks everybody for watching.